Good morning, everyone. Again, continuing the series on inhumanity in Islam, we discussed about, um, we saw already verses on cruelty towards the babies, cruelty towards children, cruelty towards women, cruelty towards the old, cruelty towards animals, cruelty towards the nature, torture, apostasy, sexual slavery, forced conversion, and now we will talk about jizya. As I had previously mentioned, that jizya was a kind of tax which was taken from Hindus who wanted to maintain their worship of their idols. So, Muhammad had ordered persecution of all the Hindus and all the idolaters, like killing them if they were allowed to worship their own idols, they would have to pay a jizya. And this tax was not a small tax, it was a very high tax, and poor people were not able to afford it. And soon they, out of fear of their life, they would convert. So Muhammad had got several people converted. Uh, Almost all people in his gang were converted through fear and persecution, fear of persecution. So let us see further about this jizya. Also, some Muslim apologetics say that they pay zakat, which is a kind of tithe tax that they pay to the Muslim board, because actually, so they say that what's wrong in paying jizya, but we will see that jizya is not the same as zakat. Zakat is given by those Muslims who do not do jihad and sit at home, so they money towards the pay money which is called as zakat, a kind of donation. But for Hindus, it was a tax which was double that of the zakat. And we will discover these from the book. First, we will follow the same pattern, see the verses from the Quran and the Hadith regarding jizya collection, and then we will see if Muhammad actually levied jizya, and then we will see whether the Islamic invaders to India levied jizya and the way they collected jizya. So, without delay, let us continue. First of all, I would like to begin with those verses which I saw a few years earlier, and but now they are deleted from online, digital, like Quran and all, where I extracted them. But now I cannot see those references anymore because they have removed these from the Quran. So let's start with those. So I'll share with you. Let's read some of these deleted verses, but these are not deleted from the actual Quran. They are deleted from online versions. So it's Sahih Bukhari, Volume 4, Chapter 88, narrated Ibn Umar that the Prophet said, "My livelihood is under the shade of my spear, and he who disobeys my orders will be humiliated by paying jizya." So here Muhammad is terrorizing people by saying that they live under the shade of his spear, and whoever disobeys his orders is going to be humiliated, because the jizya giver had to be very humble and show this humility while paying the jizya. And Tabari, volume 12, Umar ibn al Khattab said, "Summon the people to God. Those who respond to your call, accept it from them, but those who refuse must pay the poll tax out of humiliation and lowliness. If they refuse this, it is the sword without leniency. Fear God with regard to what you have been entrusted." So it's saying that summon the people to God, to Allah, and whoever gives you jizya, accept from them, but uh, those who accept Islam accept it, but those who refuse, and they must pay the poll tax, and that too out of humiliation and lowliness. and there should be no leniency. Ibn Ishaq, pages 956 and 962 say Muhammad said, "He who withholds the jizya is an enemy of Allah and his apostle." Sahih Muslim 4294 says, "It has been reported from Sulaiman bin Buraidah through his father that the Messenger of Allah said, if they refuse to accept Islam, demand from them the jizya. If they agree to pay, accept it from them and hold off your hands. If they refuse to pay the tax, seek Allah's help and fight them." So again, those who accept Islam, then it's okay. If they refuse to accept Islam, then you demand the jizya. If they pay it, it's okay. If they refuse, you fight them. Then Quran 9:29 says, "Fight those who do not believe in Allah nor in the last day and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His Messenger have made unlawful and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. Fight until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled." Tafsir Ibn Kathir says the most respected tafsir in the Quran states paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace. So also they consider that those people who are paying jizya paying is a sign of kufr. That means these people have done kufr, like non-believing people are doing, like believers, if they do something which is out of Islam, they would call it kufr. So paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace. The following is from the unabridged version of Tafsir Ibn Kathir. This part was deliberately left out of the abridged version. Tafsir Ibn Kathir Al Firdaus Limited, first edition, part 3, pages 37 to 38 states, Allah says there is no compulsion in religion, meaning do not force anyone to embrace Islam because it is clear and its proofs and evidences are manifest. Whoever Allah guides and opens his heart to Islam has indeed embraced it with clear evidence. Whoever Allah misguides, blinds his heart, and has set a seal on hearing and covering on his eyes cannot embrace Islam by force. Hence, Allah revealed this verse. But this verse is abrogated by the verse of fighting. Therefore, all people of the world should be called to Islam. If any one of them refuses to do so or refuses to pay the jizya, they should be fought till they are killed. This is the meaning of compulsion. In the Sahih, the Prophet said, Allah wonders at those people who will enter paradise in chains, meaning prisoners brought in chains to the Islamic State. Then they embrace Islam sincerely and become righteous and are entered among the people of paradise. The main reason why non Muslims converted to Islam historically was to avoid the burden of the jizya tax. Islam spread mainly through war and persecution. This is the reason why almost all Muslim countries today were conquered by Muslim armies in the past. So, one verse was given in the beginning by Muhammad, and we all know from Sirah, from life of Muhammad, that when he was in minority and when his position was weaker, a weaker verse would come out, which was lenient and which was kind of nice and friendly. But as soon as the Muslims grew in majority, more violent verses came out, and so this is exactly a proof of that, that in the beginning there he said there is no compulsion of this religion. There is, in Hindi it would say, tumhara deen tumhare liye, hamara deen hamare liye. Deen meaning religion, so your religion is yours and our religion is ours. That's what was the verse that he gave earlier. And he's saying that there is no compulsion in Islam, and whoever, if a person is not choosing Islam, that is because Allah has misguided him, and so He has blinded his heart and He has set a seal on his hearing, so he is not converting. So don't force it because Allah wants to misguide him. At first he said that. Then that verse was abrogated, and he brought out a new verse in which he said that kill all those people, bring all the people to Islam, and if they refuse, you kill them. And then he also wondered whether in paradise he would see these people in chains who are brought to embrace Islam. So here we see that how jizya tax is being levied on people who uh, who want to follow their own religion, until, and it is so high that they one time a time occurs when they run out of money, and then they have to convert or die. So now I will read to you from Sahih Bukhari, Volume 4. There is a chapter on Jizya, and I'll read to you from that. So let me enlarge this. The Book of Al Jizya and the Stoppage of War. And this is Sahih Bukhari, which is an authentic hadith book, and the volume 4. This whole book, I have downloaded this whole book, and this is the chapter 58. Um, it's the whole chapter is on jizya, and it says, the first verse says al jizya, and it tells the definition, that is tax taken from all non-Muslims living under the protection of the Islamic State, taken from the dhimmi. So now the taxpayer is called a dhimmi. A non-believer who wants to worship his own idols is called a dhimmi. Who pays the jizya, he's called a dhimmi. So either you become a dhimmi or you die. So it's taken from a dhimmi and the stoppage of war for a while with the enemies. So it's not that they would not have a war with you at all, but it is only for a limited time that you are being allowed to work, keep your idols. And the statement of Allah, fight against those who believe not in Allah. So, who do you want to fight with? Number one are people who do not believe in Allah, nor in the last day. So, they don't believe in the judgment day. Number three, nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger Muhammad. So, whatever He has called haram means you cannot do if you do not abide by Muhammad or Allah, those people, and those who acknowledge not the religion of truth, that is Islam, among the people of scriptures, Jews and Christians, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. So you have to fight with all these people who do not believe in Allah, do not believe in the judgment day, and do not forbid all that which has been forbidden by Muhammad and Allah, and who do not acknowledge the religion of Islam. Then they will have to pay jizya with willing submission and with humility. And what has been said regarding the taking of jizya from the Jews, Christians, Magians, and non Arab infidels? Narrated Ibn Najih, I asked Mujahid, why are the Syrians charged 4 dinars as jizya while the Yemenites are charged 1 dinar only? Mujahid replied, this jizya has been fixed on the basis of the degree of prosperity. So there was a question which was asked um, by Ibn Abi Nijah. He said that why is it that the Syrians were charged 4 dinars as jizya, while the Yemenites were only charged 1 dinar. So their rates were different. They would from Yemenites were poor, so they would charge 1 dinar, but from Syrians they would charge 4 dinars. So narrated. So I have marked these because this whole chapter is very very long. So whatever doesn't talk about jizya and talks about their small stories about they gathering around a well and then canceling the marriage of Magians and all that, I don't want to read from that. So it tells about Umar did not take jizya from the Magian infidels, but when Abdul Rahman told him that Muhammad used to take jizya from the Magians of Hajar, so he also started doing that. So here he says, narrated Amr ibn of al Ansari, who was an ally of Bani Amr bin Luai and one those who had taken part in the Ghazwa of Badr. So there was a battle of Badr, it was a famous battle. And also, Ansar were the people who were newly converted Muslims, were called Ansars. So Allah's Messenger sent Abu Ubaidah bin al Jarrah to Bahrain to collect the jizya. So here is it's just mentioning that Muhammad had appointed Ubaid bin Jarrah to Bahrain. He sent him to Bahrain to collect jizya, and so there was a peace establishment between the people of Bahrain and Muhammad, and so uh, by peace, it means that we will not kill you, but you have to pay jizya. So this guy goes over there, and I'm not going to read the whole paragraph. I'll just tell you that when he arrived, Muhammad was in prayer and all, and then Muhammad asked him, "Did you bring all that?" So he had collected jizya from them. So that's what this paragraph is saying. Um, so narrated Jubair bin Hayya that Umar sent the Muslims to great countries to fight al-Mushrikan. So al-Mushrikan is a common terminology for all kinds of infidels, whether they are polytheists, pagans, idolaters, disbeliever in oneness of Allah and Muhammad. So all these were Mushrikan. And when Al Hormuzan embraced Islam, Umar said to him, "I would like to consult you regarding these countries which I intend to invade." So, anyways, this whole paragraph is not of our concern. It's comparing a bird with head and wings, and how he went to different countries to collect. Um, so, this Muhammad had said, "Whoever amongst us is killed, martyred, shall go to paradise to lead such a luxurious life as he has never seen, and whoever amongst us remains alive shall become your master." So Muhammad was trying to just give this hope of a paradise to all his people, so that they should carry out his commands, and kill people around, so and convert them to Islam. And for as a reward, he offered them uh, just false promises of a paradise and a luxurious life after death. So Al Mughira then blamed Al Numan for delaying the attack. Um, anyways, chapter in the second verse: if the Imam concludes a truce with the king of country, will peace be observed in regard to all people of that country? So that's the next question. And he says, we accompanied the Prophet in the Ghazwa of Tabuk, and the king of Ela presented a white mule and a cloak as a gift to the Prophet, and the Prophet wrote to him peace treaty and to keep authority over his country. So the peace treaty is that they will charge the jizya, but they will not kill these people. Okay, let's see the third verse. The advice to take care of non-Muslims who have a covenant of Allah's messenger. So, if suppose you have signed a peace treaty, if you're a non-Muslim and uh, you have signed a covenant, then what happens? Narrate Juwairia bin Qadam al-Tamimi. We said to Umar bin al-Khattab, "O chief of the believers, advise us." He said, I advise you to fulfill Allah's dhimma, financial obligation made with the dhimmi, as it is the dhimma of your prophet and the source of the livelihood of your dependents, that is the taxes from the dhimmi. So, how do you take care of non Muslims? The Muslims say either you come into the fold of Islam, or we make a peace covenant with you and you give us financial tax. And that tax is actually, the rate is very high, which I will show you a little later. And all these, this was meant by peace, that they have to pay financial taxes, otherwise they would be killed. So peace meant taxes. What grants the prophet gave from the land of Bahrain, and what he promised to give. So, um, this is narrating all much in detail here. I have marked something here. So, I went to Abu Bakr and said, Allah's messenger said to me, if the revenue of Bahrain came, I would give you this much and this much and this much. On that, Abu Bakr said to me, Scoop. So, this is being narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, and who is saying that Muhammad told him that if the revenue of Bahrain would come, that he would give him this much, this much, this much, he was promising. So Muhammad died, and then the revenue of Bahrain came, and Abu Bakr said the same thing what Muhammad said, and Abu Bakr told him to scoop money with both the hands, and he scooped money, and then Abu Bakr asked him to count it, and it was 500 gold pieces. So he was given 1,000. he gave me was 1,500 gold pieces. So that's they're talking about the Jizya collection which came from Bahrain and how it was distributed amongst the people. So here again there is narrated Anas. Money from Bahrain was brought to the Prophet. He said, spread it in the mosque. It was the biggest amount that had ever been brought to Allah's Messenger. In the meantime, Al Abbas came to him and said, O Allah's Messenger, give me, for I gave you the ransom of myself and Akil. So there is this when Bahrain's revenue came, um, Al Abbas came to Muhammad and he said, see, I did some, that I gave you the ransom myself and Akil. So the Muhammad told him, okay, you scoop the money with both hands and put it in your garment and take it. So he scooped the money and put it in his garment, but he could not lift it. So he asked the Prophet, meaning Muhammad, will you order someone to help me lifting it? So Muhammad said, no. Then Al Abbas said, then will you yourself help me carry it? So Muhammad said, no. Then Al Abbas threw away some money, but even then he was not able to lift it. So he again requested to Prophet, will you order someone to help me carry it? And Muhammad said, no. Then Al Abbas said, then will you yourself help me carry it? Then Muhammad said, no. So Al Abbas threw away some more money and lifted it on his shoulder and went away. The Prophet kept on looking at him with astonishment at his greediness. But Muhammad himself was very greedy. So he was looking at another greedy man, and Allah's Messenger did not get up from there till a single dirham remained from that money. So the focus was on the money and the distribution of the jizya money collection, how he rewarded his own gang men who had either martyred their sons or their relatives for this purpose, and then they were the only ones left, and how he gave the jizya revenue to these people. So, let's read from here. Narrated Abu Huraira. While we were in the mosque, the Prophet came out and said, let us go to the Jews. So they were gathered in the mosque, and Muhammad is saying, let us go to the Jews. We went out till we reached Baitul Midras. That's a place. He said to them, if you embrace Islam, you will be safe. So he's telling the Jews, Muhammad is telling the Jews that if you embrace Islam, you will be safe, meaning you won't be killed. You would know that the earth belongs to Allah and His Messenger, and I want to expel you from this land. So the land was belonged to the Jews, but Muhammad told them that this land now belongs, the whole earth only belongs to Allah and Muhammad. So I want to expel you from this land. And if you anyone amongst you owns some property, he is permitted to sell it. Otherwise, you should know that the earth belongs to Allah and His Messenger. So he repeated his words, and he wanted to grab the land. It is the land jihad, which they still do today. So, anyways, this chapter is very long. If Al Mushrikan polytheists prove treacherous to Muslims, and will they be forgiven? This that. So let us continue with our own presentation. Let's see how they demanded jizya. We see in Sahih Muslim chapter 19 and verse 4 to 94. It says, if they refuse to accept Islam, demand from them the jizya. If they agree to pay, accept it from them and hold off your hands. If they refuse to pay the tax, seek Allah's help and fight them. When you lay siege to a fort and the besieged appeals to you for protection in the name of Allah and His Prophet, do not accord to them the guarantee of Allah and His Prophet, but accord to them your own guarantee and the guarantee of your companions. For it is a lesser sin than the security given by you or your companions be disregarded than that the security granted in the name of Allah and His Prophet be violated. When you besiege a fort and the besieged wants you to let them out in accordance with Allah's command, do not let them out in accordance with His command, but do so at your own command, for you do not know whether or not you will be able to carry out Allah's behest with regard to them. So, here in this verse, all they are saying is that It's instructing the Muslims that when they go and to the non-Muslims, if they refuse to accept Islam, then you demand jizya from them. So if they agree to pay, then you accept it and keep your hands off. But if they refuse to pay it, then you fight them. And then he says, when you lay siege to a fort, suppose, and they have gone inside the fort, then you do not, uh, whether they are coming out of the fort or whether they are going inside the fort, do not make any promises in the name of Allah or in the name of Muhammad. Make a promise in your own name because it is a lesser sin. So, in both these cases, do not take any promises, do not keep any, name any promises in the name of Allah or Muhammad. So, in Quran chapter 9 and verse 29, it says, fight against such of those who have been given the scriptures as believe not in Allah nor the last day, and forbid not that which Allah hath forbidden by his messenger, and follow not the religion of truth until they pay the tribute readily being brought low. So we have already seen this verse earlier. When I was reading offline, it has been taken, but afterwards I found in one place, so I took it. We already have covered this verse where it is saying all those people you have to fight who do not believe in Allah or in the judgment day, and they do not forbid those which Allah or Muhammad has forbidden, and they do not follow the religion of truth. Then uh, you have to charge a tax from them, and after bringing them very low. And the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. That is their saying with their mouths. They imitate the saying of those who disbelieved of old. Allah Himself fighteth against them. How perverse are they? So, in this verse, He is just saying that the Jews and Christians have different gods, and that they are perverse people and fight them. So, what he talks about Christians and Jews can be seen from Sunan Abu Dawud, chapter 20, book 20, Hadith 121. A man reported from Bakr bin Wa'il on the authority of his maternal uncle as saying, I said, Apostle of Allah, may I levy tithe on my people? He replied, tithes are to be levied on Jews and Christians. So here we see that a man called Bakr bin Wail came to Muhammad, and he asked him whether he should charge tax on his people, meaning Muslims. But Muhammad corrected him and said that taxes were only to be charged on the Jews and the Christians. So now we see how they collected from Jews and Christians, and now we'll see whether they are collecting from Zoroastrians. So this is Sunan Tirmidhi, 1587. It says, narrated Bajala, that Umar would not take the jizya from the Zoroastrians until Abdur Rahman bin Auf informed him that the Prophet took jizya from the Zoroastrians of Hajar. There is more dialogue in the hadith than this, and this hadith is a Hasan Sahih. So Bajala is saying that there is this man called Umar who never used to collect jizya from the Zoroastrians. He used to leave the Zoroastrians aside. But when Abdur Rahman bin Auf told him that Muhammad also collected jizya from a different Hajar, there is a place called Hazar, and he charged jizya from the Zoroastrians who lived in Hazar. So why are you not charging from these people, from these Zoroastrians? So he was trying to tell, Abdur Rahman was trying to tell Umar that since Muhammad charged jizya from the Zoroastrians of Hazar, it is okay for you to charge jizya from these Zoroastrians. Now Hafil. So let's look at, this is Sahih Bukhari, volume 3, book 39 and number 521. The Prophet concluded a contract with the people of Khyber to utilize the land on the condition that half the products of fruits or vegetation would be their share. The Prophet used to give his wives 100 waqs each, 80 waqs of dates, and 20 waqs of barley. When Umar became the caliph, he gave the wives of the Prophet the option of either having the land and the water as their share or carrying on the previous practice. Some of them chose the land and some chose the waqs, and the Aisha chose the land. So all this is this verse is saying, it is narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, saying that Muhammad used to with the people of Khyber, he had a kind of deal that that they would keep working on the land and cultivating it, and half of the produce of that land, fruits or vegetables, would become will come to Muhammad. And Muhammad himself used to give 100 bucks to his wives. He had 14 wives, and he used to give them 100 bucks each, and 80 for the dates and 20 for barley. But when Muhammad died, and this Abu Bakr came into power, Umar became the caliph. Then he started giving land also as an option, and Aisha chose the land. So this is the same hadith. It is telling in different words. Collection from Polytheist. Now this is Abu Dawud and verse book 20, hadith number 63. It says, uh, I think I copied it in a way that the first line is missing. So we don't know who is saying to who. 100 camels which were to be acquired from the fifth taken from the polytheists of Banu Dhul. So he took a part of them, for Banu Dhul embraced Islam. He then asked Abu Bakr for them later on and brought to him the document of the Prophet. So Abu Bakr wrote for him that he should be given 1,200 sa from the Sadaqah of Al Yamama, 4,000 sas of wheat, 4,000 sas of barley, and 4,000 sas of dates. The text of the document written by the Prophet uh, for Mujah was as follows: In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. This document is from Muhammad, the Prophet, to Mujah bin Ibn Miraha of Banu Sulma. I have given him 100 camels from the first fifth acquired from the polytheist of Banu Dhul as a compensation for his brother. So we come to know two things from here. First of all, Muhammad always kept one fifth from all the spoils of war. From the Jizya collection, so this guy, Banu Dhul, had embraced Islam. So one fifth is taken from the polytheists. So that much is the rate of Jizya from the polytheists of Banu Dhul, but he later embraced Islam. So later on, he was given 1,200 sas and all that barley and all dates and all. So it's saying that if you become a Muslim, then you gain. Otherwise, they've collected from the polytheists one fifth of jizya. So polytheists were also along with Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians. Now, this is Abu Dawud, book 20 and hadith number 76. Abu Huraira said, while we were in the mosque, the apostle of Allah came out and said, come on to the Jews. So we went out with him and came to them. The apostle of Allah stood up, called, and then said, if you, the community of Jews, accept Islam, you will be safe. They said, you have given the message of Abu al Qasim. The apostle of Allah said, accept Islam, you will be safe. They said, you have given the message Abu al Qasim. The apostle of Allah said, that I intended. He then said the third time, you know that the land belongs to Allah and his apostle, and I intend to deport you from this land. So if any of you has property, he cannot take it away, he must sell it, otherwise know that the land belongs to Allah and his apostle. So this is verse is mentioning, it's very simple, and you can understand that he had gone, Muhammad had gone to a place where there were Jews, and he told the Jews that they should accept Islam and be safe, meaning that they will not be never be killed. If they accept Islam, they will be safe. They will come under the fold of Islam. But they repeat it several times, and then in the end, Muhammad is telling them that that this whole earth belongs to Muhammad and Allah. So you have to leave this land, and if you have property, you have to sell it. So this whole land belongs to Muhammad. So basically, two things: all Jews should accept Islam to be safe, or else they should depart from there and leave the land because it belongs to Muhammad. Now, let us see another incident. This is Sunan Abu Dawud, uh, Book 20, Hadith 79. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar. The Prophet fought with the people of Khyber and captured their palm trees and land and forced them to remain confined to their fortresses. So they concluded a treaty of peace, providing that gold, silver, and weapons would go to Messenger of Allah, and whatever they took away on their camels would belong to them on condition that they would not hide and carry away anything. If they did so, there would be no protection for them and no treaty with Muslims. So here it's just saying that this has been narrated by Ibn Umar that Muhammad went to Khyber and he captured their palm trees and their whole land and everything, and he defeated them. And they were confined in their fortresses, and then they made a peace treaty in which all the gold and the silver and all the weapons will go to Muhammad, and they will load everything on the camels in clear view. They will not hide anything, and they carried away a purse of Huay ibn Akhtab, who was killed before the Battle of Khyber. So there was another battle which was held before this Battle of Khyber, and in which there was this purse belonging to Huay ibn Akhtab. So though they were taking away this purse also, he took away the ornaments of Banu an Nadir when they were expelled. So in that purse were the ornaments of Banu an Nadir, but they belong to this person only. But Muhammad asked Saya, "Where is the purse of Hoy ibn Akhtab?" He replied, "The contents of this purse were spent on battles and other expenses. Later on, they found the purse. So he killed Ibn Abul Hukai, captured their women and children, and intended to deport them." So you see, this Muhammad was so greedy that he remembered that there was a purse in the previous battle which had been acquired by these people. So even if they had Muhammad had taken all the gold and the silver and the weapons, and they were only taking a mere few things on their camels, he found out that they were taking the purse, and so he killed them and he captured their women and children and making them slaves, and he killed Abu Kaya and the rest of the people he wanted to deport them. They said, "Muhammad, leave us to work on this land. We shall have half of the produce as you wish, and you will have half." The Messenger of Allah used to make a contribution of 80 works of dates and 20 wheat to each of his wives. So here, when he killed Abu, this one man, and the rest who was carrying the purse, he killed that man. But the rest of the people, when they were asked to leave the land, they made a treaty with Muhammad that they would give him half the produce, but they will be doing the cultivation, and Muhammad will only be reaping. So Muhammad will reap half of that yield. Now let's see another case. This is Abu Dawud, Book 20, and Hadith number 110. This is about Jizya. So actually, in the beginning, I put all the verses together and then I put the incidents. But since that incident was matching, it's kind of mixed up. So now we are again back to verses. Here narrated Anas ibn Malik, Uthman ibn Abu Sulaiman. The Prophet sent Khalid ibn al-Walid to Uqaydir of Duma. He was seized and they brought him to him, that is the Prophet. He spared his life and made peace with him on the condition that he should pay jizya, a poll tax. So here again there is a reference of jizya, that how Muhammad made a peace treaty with this man, uh, Khalid ibn al-Walid. He made a peace treaty. He spared his life, meaning he didn't kill him, but he made him a peace treaty that he has to pay the jizya. So another example, let's see. This is Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 20 and Hadith 117. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas, a man belonging to Usbadin of the people of Bahrain, who were the Magians of Hajar, came to Messenger of Allah and remained with him for some time and then came out. I asked him, what have Allah and His Messenger of Allah decided for you? He replied, evil. I said, silent. He said, Islam or killing. See, there are two options, either Islam or killing. Abdur Rahman ibn Auf said he accepted jizya from them. Ibn Abbas said the people followed the statement of Abdur Rahman ibn Auf and they left that which I heard from the Usbadi. So we know from previous verses that this guy, um, Abdur Rahman ibn Auf, was sent to collect the jizya and hear from the people of Bahrain, and these were the Magians or the Zoroastrians of Hajar. So they are collecting all the jizya from them. So this is the evidence given in Hadith. So, but you don't have to pay jizya if you convert to Islam. That we see from Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 20, Hadith 126. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. The Prophet said jizya is not to be levied on a Muslim. So if you are a Muslim, jizya, you don't have to pay jizya. And if you convert to a Muslim, you don't have to pay jizya. So again, see, he's in Ibn Kathir, Muhammad Ibn Kathir said, Sufyan was asked to explain the tradition mentioned above. He said when he embraces Islam, no jizya will be levied on him. So it's telling already those who are Muslims, they will not pay any jizya. Those who are converting to Islam will not pay any jizya. Now let's talk about if you find any buried treasure. Narrated Abu Huraira. Oh, sorry. This is Sunan Abu Dawud 3, Book 20, Hadith 158. It says, narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, a fifth is payable on buried treasure. Say if you find buried treasure and you are a non-believer, you have to pay one fifth. Now let's see Aurangzeb Akhbarat. So during the time of Aurangzeb, there were newspapers. Even during the time of Akbar, they floated newspapers which were called Akhbarat and which give us a very detailed count day wise, date wise, what Aurangzeb did. So these are all documented evidence. These are authentic documented evidence. So here, this slide I have taken from Neeraj Atriji's slide because I don't have a copy of the Akhbarat. So I've taken this copy from Neeraj Atriji, who is another source who collects all these authentic sources. As all the aims of the religious emperor were directed to the spreading of the law of Islam and the overthrow of the practices of the infidels, he issued orders to the High Diwani officers that from Wednesday, the 2nd April 1679, first Rabbi A, in obedience to the Quranic injunction, till they pay commutation money jizya, with the hand in humility, and in agreement with the canonical traditions, jizya should be collected from the infidels. Over there, they call them dhimmis. Here it's written zimmis of the capital and the provinces. Many of the honest scholars of the time were appointed to discharge the work of collecting jizya. May God actuate him to do that which he loves and is pleased with, and make his future life better than the present. So this Akhbarat says the Aurangzeb's farman or his orders to collect jizya from all the zimmis, meaning the idol worshippers who were allowed to keep their idols, um, that they should pay jizya with the hand in humility. So how much jizya do they have to pay? Now let's see this. This is a book by Jadunath Sarkar, who has again written in year 18 something. And here we see the rate of jizya. The rate of taxation were fixed at 12, 24, and 48 dirhams a year for the three classes respectively. So there was the rich class, the middle class, and the poor class. So the poor class was 12, 24 for the middle, and 48 for the rich. Of rupees 3 1 by 3, rupees 6 2 by 3, and rupees 13 1 by 3. On the poor, therefore, the incidence of the tax was at least 6% of the gross income. On the middle class, it ranged from 6 to 1 by 4th per case, and on the rich, it was always lighter, even the 2.5 per thousand. In violation of modern canons of taxation, the jizya hit the poorest portion of the population hardest. So the poor was made to pay much more. It was more heavy on him because this to pay even this much rupee was hard for him. It could never be less than rupees 3 1 by 3 on a man. And this 3 rupees in that time was a very big amount, which was the money value of 9 mounds of wheat flour. So you can imagine in this 3 1 by 3 rupees what you could buy at that time was 9 mounds of wheat flour at the average market price at the end of the 16th century. So in the 16th century, 9 mound of wheat flour you could buy with this much money that the poor man has to pay in tax. The state, therefore, at the lowest incidence of the tax, annually took away from the poor man the full value of 1 year's food, that equal to his whole 1 year of food, which they extorted from him by way of jizya and as the price of religious indulgence. Secondly, all government officials were exempted from all the tax, though they were the wealthiest members of their respective classes in society. So here the distinction of charging jizya from the rich and the poor is shown that the rich it was less jizya, plus they were also employed in the government, and then if they were employed by the government, then they didn't have to pay tax. So for the rich people, they had to pay lesser jizya, plus they were exempt also. But for the poor, it amounted to 1 full year of food. So all the poor people will naturally convert to Islam then. So, and how it was taken. So now we have seen how much it was taken, and now let us see how it was taken. So this again is in Futuhat-e Firoz Shahi by Sheikh Abdul Rashid, one can read the following. After Firoz Shah Tughlaq imposed jizya on Hindus, also said that jizya would be exempted if they converted to Islam. So they didn't have to pay jizya if they were converted to Islam, but the Hindus thronged in clusters after clusters and groups after groups and were glorified by the glory of Islam. So they were coming and converting like anything. And likewise, to this day of ours, they come from far and wide, embrace Islam, and jizya is off from them. Poor Hindus who were not able to pay jizya, and there were so many of them who could not pay jizya because it hit the poor class the most, so they all converted. From all far and wide, they came and converted. Kashmir had a unique situation where Sikandar Butchikan levied both zakat and jizya upon Hindus. So this Butchikan was extremely cruel. The zakat, which was charged from Muslims, a very low amount, was also payable by Hindus. So they had to pay two things, zakat also and jizya also, which obviously multiplied the economic miseries manifold. And Amir Khusro writes about jizya being a hatch for the dhimmis. Did the dhimmis not? So this Amir Khusro is a very sadistic man, I would say. Although he calls himself a poet, but he's saying he's a Muslim apologetic for defending jizya collection. He's saying, did the dhimmis not enjoy the concession of the Sharia? all trace of the Hindus would vanish root and branch. So he's saying that, oh, well, they were not a Sharia was law was not imposed on them, so they enjoyed that, and that's why they paid for it. And now they will vanish the root from the root and branch. And the actual event of a collector of Islamic jizya visiting a Hindu neighborhood was shameful for the king kinds of things he engaged in. So there was this collector. This is an actual event which happened. Um, he went this Islamic jizya collection of in a Hindu neighborhood. Qadi Mug, Mughid Ag Din told Sultan Alauddin Khilji. So he said if the jizya collector asks a Hindu for silver, the latter should offer gold in all humility. So if the jizya collector is asking a Hindu for silver, he should be offered gold and in all humility. If the collector wishes to spit into his mouth, the latter should open his mouth without demur so as to enable the former to spit into it. So you can see that they were collecting jizya with so much humility as to have all these Hindus open their mouth while paying the jizya so that the collector can spit directly in their mouth and they had to consume it without making a face. I'm telling you from all that what I have read. From Dia ad-Din Barani, Tarikh-e Firoz Shahi, Sayyid Athar Abbas Rizvi, selected Hindu translation in his Khalji Kalina Bharat Aligarh 1955, page 70. So these are the evidence that I have received, but I have heard much more um, very, very shameful things and embarrassing things for Hindus, and to the level that they have been subdued and insulted and mocked and exploited, traumatized. So now I will read to you from the Archaeological Survey of India, which is another authentic proof that they have. So this is a Government of India Archaeological Survey of India, and I will read to you from here the religious policy of Mughal emperors. From here, let us see about jizya. So from the index, we see that it is on page 191 and it is chapter 9. So let me go to 191 page. So here it is. So I'll read from here. It's a big chapter. It's the whole ninth chapter. To go back a little, the jizya had been exacted by the Muslim kings of India from their Hindu subjects ever since the Arab conquest of Sindh. At first, the Brahmins had been exempted, but Firoz Shah Tughlaq failed to find any justification for this exception. As a part of his general policy to make the Kingdom of Delhi conform as much as possible to his conception of an ideal Muslim state, he imposed this tax on the Brahmins as well. Thenceforth, the tax was collected from Hindus of all classes. So, jizya has been collected from Hindus of all classes till Akbar thought it to fit to relieve his non Muslim subjects of this humiliating burden. His successors pursued the same policy and continued this departure from contemporary Muslim practice. So actually, he had for a period stopped this, but it was being charged in some other provinces um, at the same time when Akbar ruled. So although it is not mentioned here, but other sources tell us that it was for a very briefly stopped, but it regained again. But when Aurangzeb came to the throne, things took a different turn. Aurangzeb was a Puritan and was anxious to establish the kingdom of God on earth. He was a Muslim king. Actually, Aurangzeb was fanatic. Akbar was a little lenient, but Aurangzeb was fanatic, and it seemed to him unreasonable not to govern the country according to his interpretation of the injunctions of the Quran and the tradition. He was determined, like all contemporary kings of Asia and Europe, to rule his kingdom as a servant of his God. To him, Akbar's policy of toleration looked like an aberration, just as, about the same time, Charles II's declaration of indulgence seemed obnoxious to his Christian subjects, even though it granted toleration only to fellow Christians. Akbar was an exception to his age. Aurangzeb was content to be the norm. Further, Akbar's policy of toleration had not been willingly accepted by many of his officers, and they had no enthusiasm for it. Thus, there was no apprehension of opposition from the Mughal officialdom if a pious king chose to revert to the normal policy of the Muslim rulers of India. Anyway, I don't want to read the whole chapter, so um, let me take parts. By 1679, Aurangzeb had advanced so far on the path of Puritanism that it was possible for him to order the levy of the jizya of non-Muslims on the representation of Anayat Khan Diwani Khalsa. It was to be paid by all and sundry in Muslim India and Rajput states by officials and non-officials, Brahmins and non-Brahmins, clerks and fighters. So everybody had to pay. Aurangzeb's imposition differed from all earlier impositions in that it was laid on the persons living in feudatory states as well. The imposition was followed by a public protest by the Hindus at the capital and in the suburbs. They waited till Friday, and when the emperor rode out on an elephant to say his Friday prayers in the Friday mosque, they made a demonstration and blocked the path of the royal elephant. For some time, Aurangzeb was nonplussed. As all efforts at securing a path for him failed, after a delay of an hour or so, he ordered the march to be resumed, trampling underfoot many of the Protestants. So we see that he levied all kinds of taxes, jizya, on all the people, whether they were officials or non officials, Brahmins, non Brahmins, clerks or fighters or whatever. And when the Hindus protested and they came out on the road, then Aurangzeb was on an elephant and he trampled them over, trampling many of the Protestants. Abul Fazl Mamuri, who himself witnessed the incident, tells us that this continued for several days and many lost their lives fighting against the imposition. The jizya is said to have evoked a vigorous protest from Shivaji. It has sometimes been asserted that the jizya was a substitute for military service, which was obligatory on all Muslims. None has, however, explained what steps were taken by Muslim emperors in India, particularly the Mughal emperors, to enforce this conscription on the Muslim section of their subjects. Apart from theory, there is not a single case on record as far as Indian history is concerned to show that any Muslim ruler of India ever called upon all the faithful to rally to his standard for the defense of his possessions, either against internal rebellion or foreign danger. But even if it was a substitute for military service at any time, it ceased to be so when it was levied upon the Rajput Rajas of central India and Rajputana. The appointment of the Amin of Jizya for the army can be explained only on the assumption that the Hindus in the imperial army paid the Jizya. In fact, there is nothing to suggest that the Jizya was not levied upon the Hindus forming the fighting forces of the Mughal rulers. It has been asserted that the officials did not pay this odious tax, but the actual practices of Aurangzeb's reign show that no exemption was made in favor of any class of Hindus. Some Hindu officials, including a personal assistant to the provincial Bakshi, a Diwan, and an admin of the court, had, among others, delayed the payment of this tax in 1694. One of them pleaded that his Muslim superior was dangerously ill and that on the account of his being busy with his affairs he could not pay the jizya personally and would like to send it by a deputy. His request was turned down. So this was an incident that occurred in 1694 when a man, a Hindu a Hindu official said that his tax collector was ill, so he could not pay the jizya, that he could send somebody to pay the jizya, but Aurangzeb refused. His request was turned down. He was reminded that paying the jizya was a privilege and payment must therefore be made in person and as humbly as possible. The officials came and paid the jizya in person as ordered. So you cannot send your servant and pay the jizya. You have to be there yourself in a humiliating position and then pay the jizya. It was levied in the states as well. The Jaipur records mention that on 2nd May 1688, postal messengers of Raja Ram Singh were asked to pay the tax when they reached Burhanpur. So there were postal messengers of Raja Ram Singh when they reached the city called Burhanpur, a village. They refused to pay the tax because they had already paid it in Jaipur. So they had paid it in the city, so why would they pay it twice? So their letters were forcibly taken possession of, they were imprisoned, and they were released only when the matter was brought to the notice of the emperor. It was ordered that all messengers, private and imperial, should be taxed only in the place of their residence, and no demand should be made on them while carrying the post. In the Jagirs, imperial officers were sent to collect the tax. Of course, their task was none too pleasant. Collection of a tax is always an unpleasant task, and the levy of this widely hated tax very often created trouble. On 28 January 1693, for example, it was reported that the Amin e Jizya for the province of Malwa had sent a soldier in order to collect the jizya in the Jagir of Devi Singh, a son of Brahm Dev Sisodia. When he reached the place, Devi Singh's men fell upon him, pulled his beard and hair, and sent him back empty handed. The emperor thereupon ordered a reduction in the Jagir of Devi Singh. So earlier, however, another Amin had fared much worse. Not content with sending his men to the Jagir of a Mansabdar, he himself proceeded to the Jagir. In the scuffle that followed the attempt at levying the tax, the Mansabdar killed the Amin. The case was brought up before the emperor on 12th July 1684, whereupon the Mansabdar was degraded. So you see, everybody, big or small, had to pay the jizya. There was no excuse. In 1682, the Hindus of Burhanpur were reported to have made the task of collection of jizya impossible. Mr. Abdul Karim was therefore appointed Amin of Jizya, and horsemen and foot soldiers were attached to his establishment in order to facilitate his work. The Kotwal was ordered to punish the defaulters. So the rigorous were his collections. So you see, the new guy was so rigorous in his collection that instead of total of 26,000 from the whole city, as in the past year, he was able to collect one half of the city for about 1 lakh 8,000 within 2 or 3 months. It was discovered, however, his methods were none too popular and he was transferred. In 1689 and 1690, the Jizya of Palampur and Jalore in Gujarat were discovered to be in arrears. Anyway, this whole chapter is on Jizya, and you can read it yourself. So Jadunath Sarkar has calculated that in the province of Gujarat is from 4.42% of provincial revenues. 4% in Gujarat. We learned from Akhbarat that from Mandir in Berar, 30,000 had been collected and the collection is still going on. So from Ane Akbari, the revenue of Akbar was 20,000. But under Aurangzeb, the total revenue of the whole province of Berar was 1,51,081, 750. So you can see that maybe I read wrong, 15181,750. So it is so much more than what Akbar was collecting. Under Akbar, it was 142 parganas. The richest pargana contributed 6,27,868 as revenue, and the collection of 30,000 from the unidentified pargana was 4.7%. 76% of the total revenues of the richest pargana in Berar. So there is a comparison being made from what Akbar's time and Aurangzeb's time for jizya collection. Anyway, so here we see that there were three grades of assessment. Those possessing property worth 200 dirhams, rupees 52, that is silver weighing 51 tolas, 10 masha, and 7.5 grains paid 12 dirhams, rupees 3 2 as the jizya. This works out at about 6% of the property. It was a capital levy capable of wiping out the whole capital in about 20 years. So, in about 20 years, you can convert everybody. A money transaction dated 10 February 1704 states that the rate of interest to be 4%. This would mean that in the case of poor, the owners of the real property worth rupees 52, the entire income from that property was taken away as jizya. So you see, the poor were hit the most. It's again giving you that evidence. The second class was paying rupees 52 to 2500, and they paid 25 4 dirhams, which was rupees 64, and this worked out to be 6.5% of income. So this jizya is a much lower rate. And then the rich were paying, whose value property was more than 10,000 dirhams, were paying 48 dirhams irrespective of their income. So you see, you can read all that. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but this is all jizya. And then we go into the notes section, and you can see here that there is a in the appendix you will see that Aurangzeb's orders about the imposition and collection of the jizya. What was his note that this was read out, and this is dated 1696. So jizya will be collected. So that was all was in his notice, and this notice is taken here, given in the appendix, which you can read it. And then this is memorandum on the on the collection of jizya Parganas Nivas in 1094. So this is the sample of how the paper was written and how people would be charged. And this is the English version of it. The paper gives details of jizya collected last year and that of an Inam village. And number of houses 512, number of persons are 538, and amount collected 1782. So this is all given in this chapter. And um, so we see that this is about jizya collection in the time of Aurangzeb. So I come to an end of my broadcast, and I have shown you enough evidence from Quran and the Hadith what it says about jizya collection, and then how Muhammad and his men collected jizya. They appointed people to as tax collectors, and they collected jizya, which was very high. They would the men who would cultivate the land would give half of their produce to Muhammad, which means the 50% of jizya tax collection of the from the people. It was not 50% uh, of the yield they would take. That is a lot. And then we also saw the evidence from Aurangzeb and Akbar's time, and that how Aurangzeb levied much more taxes, and the jizya collection was done in a very humiliating manner, and the tax collectors would spit in the mouths of the people on the dhimmis, as they say, into their mouths while collecting jizya. So uh, now you can see how shameful it is, and what dangers are lurking over our head. And that they are trying to do, Muslims are trying to do a land jihad, and they go to every country in the world, and then they take refuge. And none of the Muslim countries which are rich give refuge to these Muslims, but they try to go in newer lands so that they can breed there and then take control of that land. So it is a strategy that they follow. The modus operandi is the same. And once they are in majority, like they are in 40%, also they start asking for favors. They are start imposing Sharia, and which means that if you want to worship your own God, you will have to pay them a tax and to pay them a jizya, and they will take financial gains from you. and so on, and not just financial gains, but to humiliate you and collect the tax. So I end my broadcast here. I hope I have given you enough awareness about jizya collection. And please like, share, and subscribe to my videos. And please to support me, at least share this information with two more people. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.